Hello and welcome everyone to the Internship and Mentorship Program 2020 by the Indian Youth Economic Association. So we'll be having the welcome address delivered by Mr. Ajay Sabharwal, President IYEA. So it's just a point before we get started with the lecture. Uh, for any queries, you're requested to drop your questions in the chat box and not directly unmute yourselves and speak. And now we shall have Mr. Ajay Sabharwal to begin with the welcome address.
Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Ajay Sabharwal and I'm president and founder at the Indian Youth Economic Association. This is the first orientation session for our internship and mentorship program. And over the course of this session, we plan to discuss with you the following. Very first, we wish to give you a brief background of what the Indian Youth Economic Association does. What is its vision? Who are the people who've laid its foundations? And what we've done over the last 8 years. Thereafter, I'll be providing a structure and the broad vision that we have for this mentorship and internship program. And then we'll introduce to you, at least I'll give some brief backgrounds about some of the mentors who will be guiding the great pool of interns that we have this year. Obviously, I'm sure that all of you have a lot of questions, all of you have a lot of doubts, and at some point, you would like all of them answered. Towards the end of the session, we'll make sure to take all of them in. Right, now brief about the IYEA. So we were founded in 2012. And as you might have read from some of the welcome addresses that you received from some of our trustees, we started off as a small group of like-minded high school students. And at this point, you could say that we are an institution committed to economic rethinking. I would say even economic relearning, but most importantly, economic unlearning. The IYEA aims to provide not just a platform for research, for promotion in the fields of economics, law, strategy, governance, security, but at the same time wants to fill the vacuum that is often left by our education system. The sort of vacuum that is not filled by the contemporary methods and mechanisms that we have at our disposal, both in terms of high school education as well as college education in the Indian education system. Over the years, we've carried out certain conferences, organized seminars, workshops, lectures, with the intention to fill this gap, with the intention to fill this vacuum. Some of the conferences that we've organized over the years include, and the list is not entirely exhaustive, and I will not be mentioning all our conferences, just some of the few which had some of the largest participation across the country. So in 2014, we very well organized the very second international conference pertaining to Model UN in India, with an international university or a United States university coming in to organize its conference. So we had the University of Chicago partnering with the Indian Youth Economic Association when we held our first U-Chicago India Model UN conference in 2014. Some of the key areas that we discussed back then were the 2014 elections, the J&K changes in the constitution pertaining to Jammu and Kashmir. We had discussions about the Second World War. We had certain discussions pertaining to the Cold War, as well as the law related to the seas. In 2016, drawing from the similar method, again at the PhD chambers and at the Habitat Center, we organized our Summit on War and Politics. The Summit on War and Politics dealt with the United States presidential elections, because this was held in November 2016. At the same time, it dealt with issues such as the World War, the Indian independence movement, as well as the Protestant Reformation in medieval and early modern Europe. In 2018, we organized the National Conference on Law, Economics, and Technology. This was organized at the Faculty of Law, Delhi University. and was one of the largest conferences in such areas, apart from the fact that it was one of the first. We had eminent personalities from the fields of lawmaking, technology, advocacy, and even economics, dealing with the overlap of these fields. And that played well with the larger goal of the organization, that is to promote interdisciplinary research. Because we believe that economics or law cannot be read in vacuum. They must be read in tandem with each other, but at the same time, they must be read with the right kind of historical and political context. And at this conference, we provided that context by getting in the third angle of technology, how both law and commerce are developing based on how new technology is coming into the marketplace. Recently, in 2019 August, we organized a small, I would say, a conversation, because I wouldn't really call that a conference. That conversation was with two very eminent personalities, two members of parliament, both from the Rajya Sabha, senior advocate Mr. KTS Tulsi and Dr. Subramaniam Swamy, renowned economist. So our discussions were pertaining to economics, law, but primarily focusing on history, tradition, and once again, the overlap of all of these fields. Over the course of these 8 years, we've organized multiple conferences with other colleges, schools, and institutions. While I will not get into the entire detail, but some of these include, apart from the Faculty of Law, St. Stephen's College, Sri Ram College of Commerce, Hindu College, schools. I think almost every school in the Delhi NCR region, we have organized some or the other activity with. And we continue to expand. We've had our chapters all across the country. We've had them in Calcutta, we've had them in Bangalore, we've had them in Maharashtra, in Bombay. So the idea was to have North, South, East, West division so that we could increase the reach. But while having said that, we primarily operate, and I think that is the best model in the given circumstances, over an online or an on-conference method, which does not require physical presence. We've always believed that you don't have to show up at a place to say, okay, I'm marking myself present. The idea is to sort of be able to work from anywhere at home. And while I think many institutions are now applying that method based on the circumstances that we are in, we've been following this method for the last 6 to 7 years. And we do realize that it has been something that has worked well for us. And that gets me to the internship program, how that works, how it's worked, I'll say, up until now for us. Now, we believe in very personalized mentorship, right? Our intention has never been that, okay, you can come in, we give you some amount of work, you carry out that work, conduct the research, put in some Google phrases, give us what we want, maybe publish an article and sort of leave. Our idea is that we personally mentor the interns, the mentees that we have, in not just sort of, okay, one point publishing something, but for them to be groomed, for them to get to know the details, the technicalities, to find out the nuances of arguments related to the fields that they want to discuss. And on some level, a very strong focus is on two things. One, on research methodology, and two, on academic writing, which we feel is another big gap which has been left by the education system, which very often we see that even students who are in a postgraduate program are not well equipped or even adept to maybe deal with these procedures. How do you go about making an argument in an academic paper, right? What is the research methodology that you must use if you're, let's say, writing a paper pertaining to economics, versus how must it change, let's say, if you're dealing with a field in history or law? So these things we believe are lacking in the system at large. And we wish to fill that gap. And that is one of the primary focuses, I would say at least the initial focus of our mentorship program. Thereafter, we provide you with classic as well as contemporary reading material, which will help you get an understanding of the, first of all, of the larger thought processes that deal with the broader social sciences and the humanities. Because neither do we focus on, let's say, the hard sciences as physics or engineering. Neither do we focus on, let's say, the other end of the spectrum, that is sort of literature and poetry. Well, every now and then we'll have a wisecrack about it, and everyone can sort of put in a couplet here and there. But our focus in terms of our study, examination, and analysis is this sort of slightly narrower field, which deals with the humanities and the social sciences. Having said that, we have very high standards of academic integrity, of honesty, and we apply them to our interns as well. In that sense, you could say that we are strict, but in terms of the rest of the environment, the research of the people that get on board with us, we are largely flexible. How do we structure the internship program? We're very flexible about that. Most of our modules are centered around your research preferences rather than, let's say, what we want you to research. Sure, we move within this ambit, but at the same time, our intention has always been to promote research amongst our mentees, amongst our interns, rather than for us to be like one of those consultancy firms. And believe you me, I have a lot of respect for many of them. I have a lot of friends who are perhaps joining in here right now who are with most of them. But I have interns and I have mentees who've come to me after having worked with us and having gone to these places and having told me, so we didn't get a lot of work there. So I don't know what they were making us do. We reached at a certain point of time, we had to check in. There's a lot of time that was being wasted and we didn't learn anything substantial. We don't know what is practical about it. Perhaps a larger systemic problem that I saw with my interactions, and I learned from my interactions with my interns over the years, has been that on some level there has to be an intention on the part of the mentor to take the mentees and the interns seriously. To say that, okay, fine, they can do the work and we are willing to give them that responsibility. I think that has been a driving force for us over the years. And obviously, I mean, you shouldn't take my word for it. We have a lot of our interns and mentees from over the years who are joining in now as research associates, as even mentors, who will be, in one sense, the term I've been told to use is buddies, who will guide you through the process. Some of them will also help you guide your, let's say, academic writing. And in that, I think the best people to ask about these kind of, let's say, the environment that we work with is these guys, right? We have Aman, we have Kishika, we have Ria, we have all of these guys joining in. I think these would be the best people that when you talk to them as to what is the larger philosophy behind this program. Now, having said that, there are a lot of changes that are happening across the world, and that should get me to this year's internship program, which is going to be very different. We're trying some very radical new ideas. And there are multiple reasons for that, right? Apart from the fact of the sort of environment all of us are in right now, we believe that on some level, for our philosophy, for our approach to benefit the maximum number of people, and that has to be our intention always, it has to scale up. We have to make the best use of the platforms at our disposal to reach the maximum amount of people. While having said that, the procedure or the path that we take in that regard, we must, and we hope that we can, not sort of lose track of our primary goal, that is personalized mentorship. That's why now I will introduce to you what the structure is for this program and what will we have planned for you. Okay, first of all, we will have a series of modules or lectures, if you may call them, over a similar platform, let's say a Zoom call. Right? And we will have these lectures delivered by some of our trustees, some of the instructors, some of our editorial board members, some of our mentors. And the broader areas of focus in these would include, one, finance, economics, money markets, capital markets. And we sort of alter our modules and we will sort of edit them and we'll sort of frame them in a way based on how we receive feedback from them. And that will be the course with all of our modules. The second set of modules will deal with, to a large extent, with history, strategy. And I believe that these are things that must be read in tandem. Very often, sort of modern approach to modern strategic problems are sort of bogged down by modern day dogmas, right? The sort of ideology or philosophy that sort of comes up, let's say 91, or comes up in 2000, comes up in 2005. You say, okay, we're coming up with a theory that can explain how wars are, or how strategic relations between countries are. But it is a firm belief that without the adequate context of history and attempts to understand security issues and attempts to understand strategic issues, would not be the most fruitful one. So the second set of modules maybe deals with this idea of security, both international as well as domestic, of history. And to a certain sense, when I deal with strategy, that has to focus on politics and differentiate it from governance and policy. Now, this is something that we very strongly believe, that we will not stop you from researching politics and researching policy. But we believe a very important distinction has to be made between, let's say, the impact on the country and the state of, let's say, one nation, one election, versus the impact that it has on the strategic outlook of political parties. So that distinction is something that we want to maintain, and the policy governance track is separate. And the strategy track is something that deals with, let's say, the sort of more real political analysis of things. Now, obviously, this is a second field that we will deal with. And the third broad field that we will deal with will obviously be law. Again, this has to do with the fact that many of our mentors come from the legal profession. And I've realized that many of those of you who've applied are also students of law. And an important attempt that will be made, while we will deal with topics of finance in a more practical way, or after having given you some sort of, let's say, basic introduction to them. The idea of studying something like law will be taken more in the context of the historical, political, economic realities of times. Maybe we can explore options, and this is something that we will, at least from our end, but we hope that some of you will be interested in it, because we will frame our modules accordingly, is that we can look at the historical context of things. It's very important to study, okay, if we are drawing the words secular and socialist in our constitution after the 42nd Amendment in December of 77, why was it that the founders or the founding fathers were opposed to introduction of something like that? Why was it that Mr. Ambedkar, Bala Sahib Ambedkar was against maybe inclusion of the word socialist, despite having, let's say, certain economic opinions about it? Right. Perhaps the answer to that, apart from lying in, let's say, the Constituent Assembly debates, could also lie in the historical circumstances from which these philosophies, these concepts have emerged. Right? So we will explore in that idea that the law, like I said, mustn't be read in a vacuum. We will give the necessary historical context to things such as this. Again, we will be open to the kind of fields that you want to pursue within this. But at the same time, because our context has to be one historical as well as economic. And obviously within economics, there is the very, very important principle of the law merchant, or that the law must follow the merchant. So obviously we will be looking at the economic context. If we go back to what Justice Brandeis said, the United States Supreme Court Justice, he said that any lawyer who has not studied economics is very likely to become a public enemy. And that is the broad philosophy behind this, that we give you the necessary context in understanding what we're doing. Right? Having said that we will have these modules, we will have these lecture sessions, if you may, with instructors, and which will be open to all of you. Now you might think, okay, there are a lot of people, and how do we go about this? You want us to have personalized training, but how do we do if there's so many people joining it? And that's where the second part comes in. The second, I personally believe the more important part, is the idea of mentorship. Now, what we will do with the second track of mentorship would be that we will have someone who is a mentor in that specific field that you wish to pursue attached to you. Right? You will be in constant touch with them, They will guide you through the process of what to read, how to approach a problem, how to develop a certain model of thinking, how to read in the context of the field that you are picking up. What are the practical implications? Sure, like law and economics and finance are practical implications that are directly there. But something like history and security, right? Sure, there's one great idea is to sort of look at grand strategy in the context of history, of culture, of geography. But at the same time, that it has to have practical relevance. That's where the questions of governance and policy come. And that is also where you will be getting some mentorship, depending on what kind of tracks you choose to follow. These mentors will be guiding you, and that will be more personalized. Let's say smaller groups. I will personally be mentoring some students, as I have been doing over the years. But I understand that we have such a huge response this year that we need to get on board all of our mentors, all of our trustees, all of the instructors, and all of them will personally guide you as well. In a sense, you could say that the model that we've been following over the years, we decided to scale up and sort of expand it, get everyone on board with respect to that. Having said that, there will also be a track where we will get some of our research associates and some of our mentors to also personally guide you in terms of academic writing, in terms of the procedures that go into academic research, right? How to maintain integrity, honesty, at the same time sort of developing a good way of writing. I understand that that's, and I believe with whatever experience I've had over the years, that writing well is a very, very important skill. And I wouldn't say that the schools and the education system does not teach us that, but I believe there are gaps that can be filled. And with my interactions with our interns over the years, this is something that is obviously a lifelong process. What you've written yesterday is probably something that you'll criticize tomorrow. So we'll focus both on the content or the substance, as well as on the procedure and the method. I believe for those of you who are coming from a, let's say, debating background, and I believe there are quite a few, the idea of manner, method, and I'm actually forgetting what the third one is. It goes on to show I haven't debated for a while. But that's what you do when you sort of move into the more practical kind of debating, right? I believe it's content or matter. Yes, that's the correct one, matter. But yeah, it wouldn't be sort of show me in good light to say I've forgotten matter. Nonetheless, I think it's good and that we've painted this picture for you guys. But now, some of the important aspects, and these are questions that I think, in a sense, burning for most of you. So I'll address these concerns. So this track of modules will go on for about a month, right? We'll try to sort of do these modules as soon as possible. Obviously, at the initial stage, we will be a bit slow because we want you to sort of grasp how things are going. We want you to sort of get on board with your mentors. We want you to get on board with our research associates, learn more from them in terms of what kind of procedures to adopt, right? Get an idea of the basics of academic writing. And as we understand that you guys are sort of catching up and you guys are sort of getting a good understanding of what we're doing, then we'll sort of pace up the sort of speed at which we're sort of bringing in modules, right? So that's, I think, one part. The second thing is that this will go on for a month. The modules, the training modules will go on for approximately sort of 4 to 5 weeks. We're flexible with that, like I said. That we're flexible with our mentors, we're flexible with our mentees, and based on how the two sort of tracks come together, we will structure our modules accordingly. Obviously, a lot of the content will also be structured in a way based on how you are sending us the feedback, how you are saying, okay, I'm interested in this, I'm interested in that particular field. The content will also design itself around that. Like I said, we believe in a very personalized approach. I'm getting, okay, I guess that's just for all of you to mute yourself, just getting some notifications. Yes, so coming back to the approach, we'll get our research associates in constant touch with you. We'll get our mentors in constant touch with you. And we'll obviously sort of focus on the substantive areas, not just through the modules, but also through your mentors. Right? They'll give you reading materials. But the most important part here is that you also have to work on yourself. I realize that some of the best works that we've produced have obviously sort of come from mentorship, sure. But at the same time, they've come from this kind of effort that the mentees have been willing to put in. So having said that, I think one thing that I must clarify, and that I think is of utmost importance, because this is because I believe that there is some misconception amongst some of you. Please do not understand that because you're attending this module, because you're attending this address, because you've been sent an email to join on this, that you have become a part of the organization, that you've become a research associate, or that you've become a mentee, or that you've become an intern. We will be guiding you through the process. There's no denying that. But in some level, what I would recommend to you is to view this entire month-long exercise, and even longer when it comes to the personalized mentorship, which I believe is the more important part. It's more like a screening process, right? And I'll give you my reasons for that. The name of the organization, the second letter in the name of the organization, is the word youth in it. As you can very clearly see, I'm sort of moving away in that. I'm moving in the other direction, just as almost everyone else is. And our intention is, in that regard, to come up with, if you may call it so, a succession plan. Right? We have some of the great minds who've been associated with us over the years. And by that, I don't just mean the sort of senior mentors. I also mean the research associates, the interns that I work with. We believe that the best direction for our organization in the coming years is for you guys to take the organization forward. Right? We do not wish to be, and we are not a company. Right? I do believe that the limited liability company is a great legal fiction, and I'm sure that I see Mr. Ashish Kumar Singh, who will be one of our instructors over the course of this, smiling at this. And I think that's the broad idea, right? That sure, we appreciate the idea of a company. We quite recognize its importance, but that's not who we are, at least in our capacity as the IYEA. We're a non-profit research trust. But as accountants would tell you, our assumption has to be that we will go on for perpetuity. And for that, we need the right minds, the right individuals who take this forward. And I want to sort of take a minute to sort of share with you what I believe sort of that mindset is like. Now, I've had this discussion with almost all of our mentors as to what do they think of the program, how do they wish to shape it. And sure, many of them come from sort of very similar fields, as you will sort of see. They come from the fields of, let's say, either economics and finance, or law, advocacy, litigation. On some level, I would say that a broad theme, a consensus, if I may, that has emerged in terms of the philosophy of the individuals who've been associated with us, is that while you may very readily and correctly say that these are people of strong opinions, as I believe all of you must be as well, I think more than anything else, most of the people who are on board with us appreciate the idea of an argument, of the idea that you can play from both sides, that there is weight to the other side's argument as well. And it is only, and I believe that we will focus this on our research methodology modules, it is only with the thesis and the antithesis that you get to the synthesis, right? Without sort of stressing upon the nuances of what a dialectic is, I would say that that is the approach that we look forward to the most, where you're at the same time, apart from sort of holding your opinions dear, you're open to the idea that there is more that you can do with it. And I've realized that I've held some very strong opinions myself over the years. But it is only when I have made them sort of come in clash with the evidence at hand, when I've realized that, okay, they must come in clash with an opposing view, with contemporary realities, I have found that they have been strengthened over the years. It's not necessary that it will break down. For whatever part breaks down, breaks down. But the part that remains is the part that you realize is getting closer to the truth. And that's the idea of sort of getting sort of a field of knowledge or sort of expanding that body of knowledge, it will come through experimentation. It will come through exploring new ideas. In discussion with one of my mentors, I asked them, okay, what is sort of one advice that you would like to give? And they said that, I think if there's one advice that I would give anyone I'm mentoring, like whether it's progeny or a mentee or anyone, would be that on some level, we shouldn't lose the idea of tinkering, or sort of be willing to experiment by being willing to lose small and be willing to win big, in the sense of exploit the non-linearity of life. Right? We will explore all of these ideas, what non-linearity is. Why do Gaussian distributions not work, right? Why actually, if a distribution might be normal, it doesn't fit well with reality, because it's, what reality is, is abnormal. Right? And even if you get the best minds in the world, so to say, sort of design a formula with a certain blacks and a certain skulls, and you were to say that, okay, fine, we have now mastered the art of finance. And again, it's not like we will not be introducing those concepts to you. Right? Our first approach will be to have, let's say, an introduction to finance module, where we tell you what all of these approaches are. And it is thereafter in the succeeding modules that we'll say, listen, this is why it doesn't hold up in the real world. Right? So that's our sort of approach. That is our module. That is our larger pedagogy. That we must be open to new ideas. That we must be willing to do some sort of experiment. And if I may, I don't want to sort of get into sort of cliched mode, but I think on some level cliches survive because they're true. And I would say that, and this is, I think, the broader idea that most of us, the trustees, had when we started off as high school kids. And some of us wanted to join the Indian Economic Association, and with all respect to them, and I think that was the right approach in their end. Worked out well for us. They said, okay, no, these are kids, we can't have them here. And we said, okay, fine. We'll start something of our own, something that not just accepts kids, but makes them priority. Right? That youth in the Indian Youth Economic Association, at least to me, and I believe I speak for the mentors as well as the trustees, is of the utmost importance. We will continue to focus on that aspect. And with that regard, I think the broader vision that we had for this, I will share with you. Like I said, I don't want to sort of stress on cliches, but like I said, it's somewhere the truth lies there. That never believe that a small group of dedicated and committed individuals cannot change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Right? With that note, I will first be open to taking some questions. Right? Before taking in some questions, I believe we also have certain suggestions and certain recommendations from our research associates, who will be sort of part of the, if I were to say, the broad secretariat of this program. One, you must always be constantly updated. You will be getting emails in this regard. Apart from that, we would recommend you to, one, join a WhatsApp group that we've made for the interns. It's more sort of direct communication. And as informal as it might be, I think a better way of keeping everyone abreast of the situation is to sort of get them connected in the most sort of speedy way, if I may, possible. Right? Obviously, you can sort of follow us on all our other platforms, and you can sort of gain some or the other information that will be of some benefit. Having said that, a couple of other aspects. Over the course of this day, I think by end, yes, I think Aman has shared that link with all of you. That has also been shared on the emails that have been sent to you. So you can obviously look that up. But towards the end of day, or probably by tomorrow, like I said, at the initial stage, and this is something that I have done with all of my personal mentees over the years, I think this is a very important exercise because it helps you sort of think better, think more clearly, and think more sort of in a focused manner. It's very important for research and for publication. You can't just build up an abstract. Like you can't build up a sort of huge library and say, okay, I want to write about everything from constitutional law to sort of politics and history, right? You have to narrow down. Within that field, I'll say, okay, fine. I will focus on the 42nd Amendment, the political history. Where did that Allahabad judgment go? who made that disappear. That Allahabad High Court judgment against Mrs. Gandhi, which eventually led to the emergency. Some great work has been done on that by advocate on record, Mr. Namit Saxena, who's also a great author in this field. Right? Again, I don't know this person. Again, I've seen him in courts. But the idea is that we will identify the best minds and we will try to get them to you. Right? The idea doesn't have to be, okay, what is our benefit in that? The idea is that we groom you for the best kind of discourse that we can have in this country. Now, having said that, a couple of other short pointers. So we'll also share with you a file or a Google form. Aman, you can send me something in chat if you think that I am missing out. So you will send you a form where we would like you to send in your research interests, your focus areas, right? And while you have broad fields in, let's say, monetary policy, finance, let's say, constitutional law, you'll have, let's say, commercial law, you'll even have, let's say, a broad field, let's say, as competition law. But we want you to, let's say, a specific field is competition law. We want you to narrow down, right? We'll give you some blank space where you can type out your specific area. We want you to narrow down on what you want to do. Sure, it's very difficult at an earlier stage, but it's an important exercise because somewhere the thought process has to start taking shape, right? We'll help you through that. Right? Specific narrow scope that you can focus on. We will do that, right? And we're very flexible that way. But we would like you to make an attempt to send us a narrow vision of what you want to do, right? Having said that, I would say that this will include both modules that you will be participating or attending. At the same time, the mentors will also be allocated to you accordingly. Right? So you can maybe send us some of the topics in the research areas that you're interested in. Two, perhaps if you worked in that field, what experience that you have pertaining to that particular field. And three, if you have some experience pertaining to, let's say, perhaps earlier research that you have conducted, or let's say academic writing in that regard. Right? So we can help you in these fields, right? Because these are also equally important. And I was told to take off my spectacles because I should have made you feel at home in an informal look. But I realized I can't even see what's happening on the screen, so I have to put that back on. Having said that, and getting into the whole idea of informal fields, we do not believe in that 1 month internship. In fact, like I've already told you, even if you attend, yes, I will be introducing the trust. Even if you attend all of these modules, you will not become an intern just by doing so. Right? I believe that my interns, my mentees are someone that I don't just guide in terms of the research they want to carry out, but also in a very personal sense, right? If at all you want to categorize how you would see the IYEA, I think Aman shared his video, his opinion about what he thought about it. And Aman has been with us for, I think, over a year now. On some level, Aman Agarwal, ladies and gentlemen, he's one of our finest interns from SRCC. So the idea is that we're more like a home, right? And I still don't like to call the IYEA as an organization. It is one, but on some level, it's a family, right? We have people who've been with us over the years. They come back, right? So many of our interns were now our research associates. So many of them are coming back as mentors. The idea is to, on some level, cultivate a lifelong relationship because we're trying to build an association of like-minded individuals. And that doesn't have to do anything with ideology or opinion per se, as much as that might have to do with, let's say, engaging with what we have in the most civil manner, right? Engaging with arguments, engaging with concepts that, okay, there is an alternative point of view. And maybe the person holding that is not evil. Right? I think that's an important aspect. That's a nuance in our argument in the public discourse. Without naming or blaming either the media or the academia, or the media or the social media. I would say that on some level, that has to start with ourselves. And the IYEA takes a strong initiative in that direction. That you can have different arguments. You have to the goal is to reach a certain truth, right, for public benefit. The idea doesn't have to be, okay, if he doesn't agree with me, he's necessarily an evil person. Having said that, I'm not saying that all is hunky-dory with the world. There are issues of, let's say, terrorism and other such evils, which we will also be dealing with. We have some great people who work in that regard, and I will be coming to some of those folks as well. First of all, again, I'll come to the trustees first. So our eternal Mr. Vice President, Mr. Madhav Bharat Bhushan, I'm not sure if he's online with us right now, but he is someone with a very strong background in finance. He has his master's from the Duke University, from, I believe, the Fuqua School. And he's presently working with Bharat Bhushan and company in terms of guiding their mutual funds program as well as the stock brokerage. Sarthak Garg is presently pursuing his chartered accountancy, and again has a strong background in finance and investment, and presently works with NKG Infrastructure, where he sort of guides projects pertaining to construction and the like. Sarthak also has a keen interest in finance, and both of them will be guiding you in this direction. Talking about the field of finance, we also have Mrs. Nyoma Prasicha, who is, again, comes from a background of finance. Her undergraduate degree was what I like to call a quadruple degree, which included economics, finance, accounting, and management. Well, she, being modest, only says that she's got a dual degree. Perhaps that's how Sheffield University markets it, but I still sort of say that she has got a quadruple degree on the undergraduate level. Needless to say, that shows in the fact that she was the batch topper in some of her courses at the London School of Economics and Political Science in a program of Masters in Finance. So the next on board with us is Mrs. Sakshi Khanna. Again, I think on some level I envy her, and in that regard, that I could never get a scientific education. Perhaps my inclination towards commerce and economics as an 11th grade student got me away from what I would now consider the real learning. And in that sense, I think we must always realize that as students of economics, of social sciences, or humanities, we must never even try to think that what we're doing is as precise as engineering. And in that regard, once again, I see Mr. Ashish Kumar Singh smiling, who himself is one of our mentors and is an electrical engineer. But coming back to our trustees, Mrs. Sakshi Khanna is a chemical engineer in training, and post that holds a degree in Masters of Business Administration. Again, having worked in the corporate field, she has also been an entrepreneur over the last few years. And her primary research area of focus is in the field of logistics and supply chains and the management in that regard. And she will be willing to guide our interns in that regard too. I believe that the next trustee that we have, who served as our secretary over the years, Ms. Ashita Alag, who is a lawyer by training, having completed her LLB, ALLB from IP University, Noida. She has now received offers from Harvard, Cambridge, and probably every other great law school on the planet. And I think we are in that sense benefited to a certain extent by the situations that Ashita continues to stay with us here in India, at least for the foreseeable future in that regard, and will be guiding and mentoring our mentees, especially those who wish to focus in the field of law. She has worked with the Supreme Court of India with Justice Deepak Gupta till very recently, up until his retirement. And I believe that is all of our interns, all of our trustees that I've introduced. I must now come to the mentors, right? I would first, I think I'll go in a sense of how we're structuring the modules and their timelines. Apart from our three trustees who will be sort of dealing with issues of finance, we also have Mr. Pranjal Chaturvedi, who I'm not sure if he's joined in today, but who's again from the field, who's got extensive training in the practical realities of finance, commerce, and trade, who's an expert in and a practitioner in capital markets as well as forex trading, who's presently working with a reputable international bank in this regard. and who will also be guiding our mentees in these areas. We have Mr. Dhananjay Sahai, who though, again, an advocate, a lawyer by training, is, I believe, an extremely learned individual when it comes to questions of domestic as well as international security. And he's worked in that regard with institutions such as ORF for a long period of time, continues to publish for these forums. And he will be guiding and also holding some instruction modules in these fields, primarily that's in global security. And we will obviously have him mentor some of our interns over the course of this internship, right? We have with us, like I said, Ashish Kumar Singh, who will be sort of joining with us in some of the modules. And in that regard, like I've already said, he's an engineer who's now turning a litigator and has a very strong understanding of, I would say, not just commercial laws, but also a field that I don't personally understand quite a lot. And that is family laws. And I do understand that as students of law, you might be interested in something like that. And I believe Ashish Kumar Singh is, in my opinion, a very good individual in terms of his grasp over the matter to learn from these things, right? We have along with us, I'm not sure if they're joining in, but we have Mr. Satvik Isar, another advocate by training, who is presently working with Mr. Vimal Kirti Singh, who's a junior associate counsel with him, who's, again, his expertise and his focus areas are in constitutional and commercial laws. And he's worked extensively in that regard. And his primary focus has been towards Articles 226 and Article 32 of the Constitution, and talking about the idea of judicial review and powers of the court, etc. We have Mr. Dhruv Chadha, who is, again, at the final stages of his law, and who's already joined in with a very established, who's received an offer from, if I may be correct, from a very established law firm, focusing primarily on competition law. And he will be guiding our mentees, not just in modules of jurisprudence on sort of legal theories and philosophies, but also on competition law and related commercial fields. Having talked about competition law, we also have on board with us Ms. Kavita Vinayak, who, again, is an extremely well-versed individual when it comes to issues of competition law. At the same time, who has an adequate experience, having worked, first of all, as an adequate experience in training, also before law, in sort of commerce, having worked extensively with S&P intelligence unit, and has a good idea of how to not just know what to research, but also how to research it. So she will be guiding some of our mentors, some of our mentees, both in the fields of how to research as well as sort of fields of law. And our focus areas include, again, commercial laws, arbitration, as well as competition law. I would like to focus on, maybe if you have some of our mentors on board, if you guys could perhaps share with me. I'm going to ask my, yes, I'm just going to look for some of the, okay, great. So yes, some of the reading materials will be sent to you as we progress, some by your mentors, some by us. You can always go over those reading materials because, like I said, you have to work on yourselves. And having said that, that's, I think, a query that a lot of you might have in terms of what kind of and how much work will go into something like this. I would say that you must treat it, like I said earlier, as a very excruciating screening process. Right? We're looking for who qualifies to be mentored by our trustees, by our mentors. And I think that's the stage that we'll sort of start looking at even more advanced modules. And if you're looking at sort of, and I wouldn't say education or schooling, but if you're looking at advanced training, advanced learning, I think that's when those ideas will come in, right? If we also have with us, I'm not sure if she's joining in, Divyani Chaturvedi, who's again been one of our mentees in the past, who's completed her master's in international development. I'm not sure of the exact details, so to pardon me on that, Divyan. But then again, her primary focus with us was on history, on economic history, and she focused on a very under-researched field, at least in terms of students, as I've seen, of the temples of southern India and what kind of role they played in the larger society, right? We also have with us Mr. Satya Sabarwal, who is presently a legal advisor to Dr. Subramaniam Swami and has worked with him over, I believe, the last 2.5, perhaps 3 years, right? Right. Who will again be focusing on issues of law, on primarily issues of constitutional law, and perhaps Heyman Satvik will sort of also sort of introduce to you ideas of fundamental rights, and that approach will be something that will be taken by all of our trustees, our mentors. That the idea is that it's so flexible. There's so much context that will come in from a lot of places. I'm sure, let's say, Ashita will also be guiding in some regards, apart from, let's say, a focus and expertise in arbitration law. I will get in some of the recommendations that I'm getting. Yes, I think Dhananjay I've already covered. Sakshi, I've covered all of these names. I think I've pretty much covered. We also have with us Shire, who will be guiding some of our mentees through research methodology, through sort of critical writing, critical thinking, academic writing, and the like. Right. I do sort of in advance apologize to any of our mentors if I have not made it a point to sort of bring up their name. I'm speaking without a paper or a reference, and it's only at the back of my mind that whosoever's name I do recall as we're dealing with the modules that I've covered this. Having said that, I think it's also important for you to realize that will not just be it. We will also be getting in some brilliant guest speakers. Right? We aim to get in some eminent personalities to talk to all of you about the fields that you want to focus on, right? The broader fields that we've discussed. Well, they will get in not just, let's say, a theoretical approach, but they'll get in a practical approach from the field that they've just been in for, let's say, last 20, 30, even 40 years for something, right? And I think that's of utmost importance. That's what I think you shape up your views, is you get an idea of what the real world is like. And in that sense, we will make our best attempts to get some of the finest advocates, some of the finest economists, people who deal with questions of security, right? Where you can sort of deal with these ideas. Having said that, we also get in people with sort of alternative point of views from now and then, because the idea is to sort of engage with the broader arguments, right? I'm looking at some suggestions and recommendations we're getting in. Absolutely. Yes, I think I must also sort of get an idea as to all that we have done. And I'm getting in some suggestions as to what we want to focus on. Yes. One, as you might see, that we have some YouTube channels where we also conduct podcasts, etc. So just a short bit on the agenda. This is our online platform. And our goal is, as we train you over the next few weeks, for you, all of you to ultimately write on this platform, right? As you progress through being interns to becoming personalized mentees, eventually we would like some of you to become research associates. And for you ultimately to think that, okay, this entire week, this entire month long, maybe 2 month long process, no matter how you take it up, is to ultimately lead to some paper, a good research paper that you can look at publishing on our platform. The agenda. Again, there are two reasons why we call it the agenda. One, which is sort of I've always made public. The other, which is privy perhaps only to 1 or 2 people in the world, which I think today I will make it a point to share because I think it's a funny anecdote. The first reason, the important reason, I think, is the more serious reason, is that on some level, we have to understand, we have to appreciate that all of us have biases. Right? I've already sort of touched upon this, but I want to stress on this idea that we will always have certain biases, certain heuristics, certain approaches that we take which are different from others, which you cannot say is, okay, entirely objective without getting into understandings of neutrality and objectivity, right? And I'm a firm believer of the school of thought that the idea of truth, getting to the truth is not always neutral. truth can be biased, right? Because that it has to be weighed in with evidence at hand. But the important part here is that we always have our biases. And the reason we call ourselves the agenda and not the independent is because everyone has one. Everyone has an agenda. Our intention is for all of you to sort of recognize that. Having said that, I think for some experience that you can gain from that is from our research associates. You can be in constant touch with them. We have Mr. Aman Agarwal as someone who I've already introduced, who's written with us, who will be sort of, if nothing else, will be guiding you through the process of how to tackle the mentors, because I think he's been at the receiving end of it for over a year now. But at the same time, I think these people will be good guides for you on how to sort of take things forward in that regard, right? What you should be asking, what kind of questions you should be dealing with. If you're dealing with a specific question, what kind of question to get to. And again, they will be guiding you through their academic writing anyway, right? Same time, we have Kishika Mahajan, who has been with us for a slightly shorter duration, but then again is currently focusing on issues of sort of again economic history, building industrial capacity, and dealing with issues pertaining to how maybe the idea of a free market. This is again an issue or a broader theme that I take personal interest in. For those of you who might be interested, is economic history in the context of how trade tariffs have developed, right? In the sense that, again, this will be one of our modules dealing with trade. Now, trade is to be looked at in economic context, policy context, historical context, even the legal context, right? So in those fields, we'll be getting some good people in that regard. But at the same time, I think Ishika is working in that field. And I think that's a field that sort of gets in all of our fields together, right? There's a strong overlap in that regard. So we have Kishika. We also have Ria Mathur, who is also from SRCC, who is also currently with, yes, absolutely. Yeah, who will also be guiding you through the logistics of it, right? The research associates will guide you through the sort of, like I said, they function as a strong secretariat. So the procedural aspects, what to do, where to do, right? So you share a form, maybe you can't understand something, you can always message them privately. They'll be in constant touch with you over the WhatsApp channels. So that's sort of the broader field that we will be, that they will be dealing with, right? Having said that, I'm personally available. You can always approach us. You can approach our trustees. You can approach your mentors, right? They would be more than willing to guide you. But at the first stage, we want you to sort of send in your research interest areas, and we will be sort of sorting you out, so to say, into sort of wings under our mentors, right? Aman, if you have any questions, or Kishika, if you have any questions that I might not have addressed, then maybe we can look at it. Yes, also one point I think that has been raised. We have good, strong tie-ups with multiple other organizations, and we sort of plan to sort of carry them out. And at the same time, we've, like I said, we have the agenda. We have online podcasts that we conduct. Many of them are, let's say, scattered. Some of them are on, let's say, our Facebook profile. Some of them are on a YouTube channel of the agenda. Some of them are on my YouTube channel, etc., which used to be the older IYEA channel. So, interesting story behind that as well. But I think in that regard, we have dealt with some great personalities. I've already mentioned Mr. KTS Tulsi, Dr. Subramanian Swamy. We had Mr. Yashwant Deshmukh, who we had a very interesting conversation for the Delhi elections, about US elections. Right now, Delhi elections are done. You can maybe go back to some of those videos, see what kind of conversations we have, what kind of approach we take to problems. So the US elections that are coming this year. Once again, I think the conversations we had with him were very interesting and, more importantly, relevant. Now, I think that's how we operated the agenda. I'm giving you a rough idea as to what the primary reason is. I'm getting some, I'll get these things. Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes. So again, I'll give you one broad agenda that, okay, we have to acknowledge our biases. That's why we call ourselves the agenda. The fun reason and a small story regarding that is that we decided to sort of launch this platform before February of 2017. We ended up launching in 2017. This is the agenda. The IYEA has been around for about 8 years now. And we initially wanted to call it the Republic, right? And as it as it does happen, and as it did happen, Mr. Goswami beat us to it. Right? We didn't make the announcement in due time, and as you have one republic. But I've been told very often that some news channels and some sort of online shows also use the word agenda in that. And sort of that sort of names coming up in other regards as well. That's just a sort of short anecdote in that direction. Having said that, I believe that our intention for all of you is to enjoy what you're doing, right? I will be extremely honest with all of you, and I hope this doesn't go out because this must be kept a secret with 100 odd people who are on the call right now, is that whenever I've tried to understand a concept in a classroom or have a teacher teach me with, let's say, a lot of people, at least for me, it hasn't always worked out well. I've been of the firm opinion that the best learning that you can do is the learning that you do by yourself. And that is something that stays with you, right? This is not a comment on sort of teachers. We're also conducting some modules. But the idea is to make all of this a fun exercise, for it to be enjoyable. Like I said, we want you to feel at home, right? I'm not in a condition to, let's say, host sort of get-togethers with our interns as we have done over the years. But I think on some level, we want to maintain a similar structure where you enjoy what you're doing, right? It's going to be tough, right? Again, there has to be a distinction between what requires effort and sort of what is boring or monotonous, right? I think that effort can be enjoyed, provided you sort of pick up the fields that you're interested in. And you can see sort of interesting ideas coming along from different fields. That gives you more context into what you're studying. So I would recommend the moment you think that you're getting bored with something you're reading, just drop it. There's no point in sort of keeping that folder or that file or that document or that book with you and continue reading. Because if the matter is genuinely something that appeals to you, you will be interested in it and you will continue to read it, right? We have people sort of go on sort of reading for us, and I think some of us do that from time to time. I think the reason for that is that we're reading something that is of interest to us. I think that's an important consideration. We'll be open to any questions, any other concerns that some of you might have. I'm getting some questions. I'm going to read them if need be. Yes. Regarding yes. So, like I said, the modules, the research modules that we have, I think I've already stated this, go on for about 4 to 5 weeks. We intend to sort of at least sort of focus on these for a month. And post that, I mean, those of you who wish to be mentored personally can continue on with the IYEA, right? Like I said, the program is extremely flexible. It works how you want it to work. The organization has always been built around the idea of what can be made better for the interns. Okay? And in that regard, you have to sort of take the initiative, right? Very often, most of us are sort of busy with a lot of other things. Many of us are working. Many of us are professionals working sort of 20 odd hours a day. And I think it would be beneficial for you to sort of take the initiative and say, okay, I'm here for a month. I might not be here for a longer period for the mentorship, but let me take the best out of it. But yes, the time duration is going to be for a month. Absolutely. You are permitted to, there is no restriction on what kind of modules you can attend, because that's what I'm saying. You read something in a finance module and you sort of attend a law module and you realize that, listen, you're a law student who studied maybe commerce earlier. You say, okay, I can conduct these things together. I can sort of associate these two things. That's how the sort of field of commercial law sort of develops. So there is no restriction on what module you can attend. Modules are open to all, right? We especially sort of upgraded our package from Zoom to sort of include 500 people, right? Again, we're open to the idea, right? Because we'll get some guest lectures in. We'll get some guest lectures in, and I understand some of those great advocates and some great personalities. A lot of more people would want to join in. And in that regard, we're absolutely flexible, right? Like I said, this is not a classroom. I'm not going to tell you, आप इस class में नहीं है, uniform पहन के आइए, नहीं तो बाहर जाइए. Right? The idea of this is to fill gaps that you otherwise feel in classrooms, is to sort of make you enjoy the whole process. Having said that, another important concern, because I've received a query in this regard, there is no fees that we are charging for this program. There is no financial contribution that is mandatory for you to pay as a fees. At least at this stage, we do not wish for there to be any charge for what we are providing. Having said that, we are a non-profit organization and there is a cost to running things. So if you wish to contribute in terms of building of the organization, because I think on some level, that's what all of us are doing. And the idea is not just to involve yourself with the substantive part of the organization, but also the sort of structural part and help it grow, because that also helps the substantive part of the research. So we're willing to sort of take on board collaborations. We're willing for you to sort of voluntarily contribute if you wish to, but at the same time, if you wish to contribute in more sort of technical aspects, such as, okay, you can say, okay, we can design certain YouTube videos in a particular regard. You can design some of the podcasts in a particular regard. You can maybe create some algorithmic sort of softwares where we can sort of conduct some research. We can deal with data and sort of examine it in a certain regard. Or even perhaps if you want to sort of help us build online forums with, let's say, web designing or coding, we're more than sort of welcome to something like that. Because one, we're also interested in sort of getting the benefits of technology. And as you can also see from some of the research that we published online, we take a very keen interest in research and technology as well. Right? That doesn't mean that we have to get into, let's say, okay, how does the nut bolt work, right? What are mechanics? But at the same time, for all of you to at least say that, okay, this is a technology, this is how we can apply this technology, this is how this technology can benefit a particular field. So those are things that we're always open to. I'm getting in some questions, so I will read out the ones which I haven't answered. Okay. No, again, there is no obligation as to what field you wish to pursue, right? And I do believe I have a lot of friends who have a similar question, who are sort of students of journalism, and who want to also sort of explore the idea of legal reporting. That's a very, very up and coming field. And our idea pertaining to that is, for example, if you know how to write, or you know sort of what to write, or you know sort of how to go about writing or reporting, a good idea would be to sort of get the basics of law. If you want to sort of, let's say, get into legal reporting. And that's where we help. The idea is not to sort of teach you law. Okay, this is what damages without injury is, this is what injury without damages is. But to give you the necessary context so that you can understand. Right? There is no compulsion on you to sort of pick any field. I've given you broad ambit within which you have to come up with specific suggestions that you want us to focus on, that you want to learn. And around that, we'll structure the modules. Right? So there is no compulsion, no obligation on you to sort of pursue research in any, let's say, law or any specific field. Choose to pursue a particular area that I choose to work with you guys, MIP. See, I cannot comment on issues of conflict of interest pertaining to what Deepa is suggesting pertaining to her PhD program. Deepa, I think that's something that's best suited if you were to discuss with the academic institution where you're conducting, like where you're holding a PhD program, right? I think they would be in a better position to answer. They have no problems. And, but otherwise, I think we have no issues in that regard. I'm sure we can discuss the details in a more like a personal call or conversation, and we can get to like the specific needs that you have. No. Okay, this is Kashmira's question. See, we have given you broad fields, right? I've told you the broad fields are economics, finance. So you can include the idea of macroeconomics and national, like in trade in that regard. You have the idea of history, security, international, domestic, the whole sort of IR focus as well. And at the same time, you have the questions pertaining to law. Now, these are broad fields that we're dealing with. You can, if you want, pick up a specific topic within this. You can pick up a slightly broader, but still sort of narrow it down as much as you can, is my point. As much as you can. Narrow it down and say, okay, this is maybe you don't know much about monetary policy as, let's say, a law student. You say, okay, fine. I want to deal with, let's say, aspects of how does the law pertaining to central banking work? Right? What's the difference between, let's say, American law in this regard versus European law versus Indian law? Right? So you can explore these questions. But you can also send us a broad idea. Okay, I am a law student. I want to focus on monetary policy. Right? So we give you sort of modules in that regard. We share reading materials with you. We hold sort of personal calls and chats. We can do all of that. Right? Again, there's no compulsion is to say, okay, you have to give me one research question, one problem, and this is what you're going to deal with the next 3 months. That's not our intention. Our intention remains at the end of it to sort of try to get a more clearer, better understanding of what you wish to do. Right? Okay, I think that's I can. Okay, like I said, you couldn't apply, you couldn't sort of do this in time. Like I said, this is not a college, this is not a school, and that's what we want to do. Right? We want you to. We're not providing education. We're not providing schooling. You would say there's more learning and training. Right? You can send in your research topics. It doesn't matter if you didn't. Like I said, there is this entire process, this month-long module, this month-long mentorship. This is the screening process. You can enter at the initial stages. You can send in your research topics, right? I want you to think about it. Maybe take a day. We will keep that slot open till tomorrow, right? We will sort of not structure a module in the next few days. And because I understand this is a problem that many of our mentees have faced. That on some level, they think that, okay, how do I narrow down? So take a day, think about it. You don't have to narrow it down to the T, but whatever you can, you do that, right? We'll be opening it up to, let's say you want to get your friends on board. You want to say, okay, no, let's try this out. I attended this call for an hour or so. Maybe this looks interesting. Maybe we can explore something like this. So we are open to that. You can send in your research topics. Having said that, there is a physical limitation. There is a capacity with which we can handle things. We can obviously not handle 1,000 interns with just a few mentors. Right? So if you take that in regard, and at some point we'll say, okay, no more sort of people coming in. So what we can do, Aman, is that we can have, for starters, that link shared by, let's say, latest by tonight, right? Where we give you broad ideas, these broad fields. Within them, we'll give you some subtopics that you can pick and choose. We'll limit those options for you. And then at the same time, we'll keep a sort of box open where you can say, okay, these are specific areas that we want to do. We'll keep that open for 2 days. Once we get an idea from you, we'll give you a structure of all modules that we will be presenting. And then we'll begin with, let's say, something on like a research methodology, academic writing module, something on those lines, right? How to approach sort of critical thinking and the like. Okay, like I said, Ayushi, you will be in constant touch with your mentors. There will be exercises that you will be performing. Like I said, they will guide you through that process. That process will include you maybe writing some initial response papers. If you're given, let's say, a reading material, they write a response paper, right? Let's say some of the research associates will guide you through that process, right? They will themselves be sort of looking at it. I will personally be looking at some of the areas. We will have some of the mentors look at these papers. Right? The idea is that when we see some progress, as we see progress in you sort of getting hold of some of the topics in that regard, then you move to sort of becoming a research associate, becoming a personalized mentee, etc. And on some level, I think my experience tells me it depends on your commitment. I'll be brutally honest, right? We receive 50, 60 applications every year, right? At the end of it, I know I'm going to go with 5, 6 good people who've been committed, who've sort of been at it, who've basically sort of been after me. Okay, sir, I've written this. Can you please go through this? Because like I said, many of the mentors are busy. They're working individuals. So on some level, you have to show commitment more than anything else. Because the mentorship in that sense goes on forever, right? When we see, okay, fine, someone is with us, someone is working well. You could say that your screening process, in the sense, if you want to see, okay, you want a finishing line, I would say that finishing line is that you can publish a paper for the agenda for the Indian Youth Economic Association. I think if you want to look at a goal with this program, that should be your goal, right? A research paper that you write, we guide you through it, we edit it, we sort of scrutinize it, we tell you how you can sort of make it better. So if at all you're looking at a screening process, if you think at some stage your paper has been finalized for publication on the agendas platforms, you could say that you've been screened through. Or as our friends from the Costa Nostra would say, you're a made man. Probably shouldn't be making mafia references at this point. But again, this is part of the fun exercise, and we can always discuss these things at some stage as well. Okay, let's look at some other questions. Is it possible if you can work on our papers along with module programs and national mentors? Absolutely, absolutely. You can work on your papers, your mentors. See, if you have a specific idea, then it'll make the job much easier for the mentor. You can continue to work on the paper. There's absolutely no compulsion in that regard, right? Like I said, it's not a classroom, it's not a college. We are there to guide you, right? We are there to say, okay, we are doing all of these things because not everyone would, let's say, be as well versed as you are in sort of a specific field, right? The idea is to sort of open that up to it. I want sort of law students to sort of read more economics and history. I want, let's say, economic students to understand how the law affects the economy, right? And in that sense, I think both those fields sort of stand to gain a lot from history as well. And in that sense, international security also has important implications of on, let's say, polity and the economy. And then we will be exploring, let's say, certain fields in that regard, let's say geonomics or lawfare, right? All of these sort of fields come together as one. And I think that's the focus point, that when we talk about jurisprudence, I think this is a concern. Like, people have a fear of this subject called jurisprudence. So it's the first paper we ever wrote in law school, and I don't know what to do about it. Because I think it's taught in a really shoddy fashion, right? What's the point of sort of the first ever paper in your law school being jurisprudence? Jurisprudence is like, much like entrepreneurship, is not something you can be taught really. This is something that you must develop for your own self. And to study something like jurisprudence without the necessary context of politics, history, and economics, it is as futile as perhaps specs for someone who has perfect vision. I think I need to come up with better analogies at a faster pace. Nonetheless, I think let's get back to some of the other questions. Again, I've told you, you can narrow down as much as you want. How will we screen through? Again, you will not be screened through modules. The intention of modules is not to screen. The intention of modules is to sort of introduce the broad ideas that are relevant in the field, and at the same time, the practical implications of the ideas and the policies and the philosophies in that regard, right? To give alternative points of view, to challenge the mainstream, the mainstream narrative, the conventional wisdom. The idea of modules is, after giving you a brief basic understanding of the fundamentals, to do that. You will not be as you say, like, screened through them. That's not going to be an issue. Yes, I hope Ayush have answered your question. I'm going to. Okay, I think we just have a word of sort of appreciation from Deepa. Yes, I think that's the motto. That's the method that we wish to follow, and that's how it's always been. Right? I don't believe in certificates. Anywhere that I've interned ever in my life, I've never taken a certificate. Sure, from time to time, people applying for master's programs sort of ask us, sir, can you send us a letter saying, okay, we work with you? I said, sure, we can do that. And we've had some of, like I've mentioned, like some of the people who work with us sort of go places, right? Some of the mentors who will be mentoring you, sort of, they're going places, right? And as you've already seen, they've got sort of whatever is required in terms of is the end goal for that certificate. So that's not our intention at all. Like I said, you cannot check out with a certificate. You cannot check out with even writing a paper. And I think if at all I should now draw this to an end, I would say in that regard that we're trying to build a strong relationship with the people that we work with. And in the words of a half-decent music man, the IYEA in that sense is a lot like Hotel California. And you must not take the drug reference here, guys. I have my intents sort of making face palms. But on some level, I think you will get this a lot, and you get a lot of dad jokes. I think that's going to be the most fun aspect of this, and I will irritate you through that, in the years to come. Aman is already sort of frowning, so I'm guessing I'm doing my job right. But like I said, we wish to be a lot like Hotel California. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave, right? And with that, I think I'll bid you farewell. A very warm welcome to all of you. Hope all of you sort of stay with us, though that's not going to be possible. We can always hope for the best. And at some level, more than anything else, you gain from this, right? This is, like I said, it's not a law firm, it's not a company. We will not give you tasks. Ye karo, ye judgment khod ke nikalo. Nahi. While having said that, you can always, if you want, assist your mentors in whatever research they are planning. I'm planning some research with a lot of them. So you can sort of pitch in if you want. But the idea will never be for you to do work for us. The idea of this mentorship, and that's why I think I always like to emphasize on the word that this is a mentorship, because the internship is for the organization. You're working for them. It's like employment. Right? The idea of mentorship is that we sort of give to you what we have gotten from those people who've guided us over this. And all of the advocates that I've worked with, all of my teachers of history, professors of history and economics, they've taught me that on some level, like the idea is to give back. That's the important point of this. That's our motto. Hope that on some level, when we get some of you on board, you can also do the same in the coming years, if I may. So once again, welcome on board. I think I'm done with most of the questions that we had. Is there anything else that's important, Aman, that we should be addressing? That's a question or a query or a pointer or Kishika? Or anyone, some of the trustees believe that there's something that I need to focus on, which we might have planned, but we've left out. Is it possible to opt for something pertaining to consulting and management? There are fields that I'm aiming as of now. So we don't have anything specific per se regarding that, but we have related fields. So you can always send in your suggestions. You can send in your research propositions. You can send in your areas that you want to focus on. And if we have adequate response in that regard, we'll try to always create content. Right? We have trustees who worked in that direction. And I'm sure even if we cannot have a module, we can have them sort of guide you on, let's say, 1 or 2 instances specifically in that regard, right? So like I said, right, I've ended 3-4 times, but we received a question, and that sort of shows our commitment to the idea that this is going to be a personalized mentorship. It's going to be about you. And I think that should bring us to a close. Hope all of you remain safe. See, safe, I've sort of come up with a new word there. That you sort of stay safe. I think I'm going to get another face palm in this regard. Nonetheless, thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. I think we've had at some point like 80, 90 more people. I think that's a very good number. And hope all of you sort of continue to stay with us. We will, I think, within today, share that Google form, Google Sheet with you. You can send in your research ideas, and perhaps in the next few days, when we sort of narrow down on that, we'll begin with discussing the structure, and we'll have some modules pertaining to critical thinking, academic writing, and research methodology. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. And once again, a very warm welcome to the Indian Youth Economic Association.